All right, good afternoon, clients of United Capital Management, the Redneck Yacht Fund. I have a very special guest today, Sue Ennis, who I've known for a few years now, and she has been a tremendous part of our network, whether she knows it or not. We appreciate our relationship with her. And Sue, I'd like you to introduce yourself to our fans and maybe start with, when you are raised in Kansas, everybody wants to know, okay, where are you from? What are your roots? How were you raised? And born Canadian, correct?
That's right. Hey, y'all. So born Canadian, and I was raised in Toronto. I think how I got to, let's talk about sort of how I got to Bitcoin, how I got to crypto. So born and raised in Toronto, went to school here in Canada, got a job in finance starting in like late 2013, and shortly became very disenchanted with some of the prehistoric dinosaur ways that I saw were underpinning the Canadian financial services systems. So silos of information, T+2 settlement, just none of it made sense to me. And so that's when I started to learn about distributed ledger, and then learning about distributed ledger ultimately led me to Bitcoin. But I think my big aha moment with Bitcoin and the so what was in early 2017, I did a jungle survival course in Amazon, Guyana. And so it was me and two logistics engineers from Doctors Without Borders, and then an ex-British Navy SEAL, and then I think like a trauma therapist. It was like 5 of us going to learn how to survive in the Amazon, Guyana. And there's a lot of ways for first world people to die, like that deep in the jungle, whether you're running into vines or getting bitten by a snake or whatever. So point is, we had this tribe that lived in the jungle who followed us around for this entire trip. And there's about 6 or 7 guys, and most of them had no idea when their birthday was. They had no formal identification, but they had cell phones. And so at the end of the trip, the leader, the chief, he asked to be paid in Bitcoin, and that for their services. And that was my and so to see in real time the agency that was afforded these people from this technology, that was my big sort of so what orange pill moment. Because I think a lot of the times in the West, we forget that having trusted institutions, having formal identification, that's a privilege, not a right. That was my big sort of so what and what led me here. Now I lead IR and government relations at Hut8. We specialize in energy infrastructure. Bitcoin mining is our tool to capture cheap megawatts at scale and then flip those megawatts to the next highest use case as technology continues to evolve. So really excited to be chatting with you.
Now that's getting pretty deep for our listeners, but we'll go there. But I want to back up. That's one of the coolest stories I've ever heard, and I'm not just saying that to flatter you. So quite often, I don't know if this number is right, everybody references 2.8 million people unbanked. And my favorite way to describe Bitcoin, a way for 7 billion people to control commerce, is just a few powerful. I have never even thought of how many people are unidentified, and that is I just don't think about that. And
well, neither did I until I was in the jungle, and I was spending 2 weeks with these guys, and I was like, how do you not know when your birthday is? But they weren't given any formal identity. They lived in the Amazon their whole life. So
that is absolutely crazy. So where were you at between the finance job and what was your first job in industry right after finance? You went straight to Hud8, but what did you do in between?
So I didn't go straight to Hud8. So it took me about 8 months once I fell in love with Bitcoin so one thing I will say for your listeners who may not know, Toronto actually had a very robust burgeoning ecosystem of Ethereum developers in 2016, 2017. So Anthony Diorio, who's one of the co-founders of Ethereum, he lives here. And so there was this sort of grassroots crypto community that was starting to gain some traction in 2016, 2017. This is simultaneously while I'm having my brains blown out in the Amazon with understanding what this technology can do. So it took me about 7 or 8 months of hardcore networking to convince some of these crypto OGs that I wasn't just another finance D-bag trying to hop on the bandwagon. So I then got hired at this company called Coinsquare to effectively establish their institutional crypto wealth trading desk. Coinsquare was then bought by WonderFi. WonderFi was recently bought by Robinhood. So that's how I first got started in the industry. That was my first job in crypto and trying to proliferate and spread the gospel on this technology.
Gotcha. So then to Hut8.
Then I worked at this other crypto project called Shift Network that was focused on how do you use crypto rails to bridge private and open permission systems. So for example, when you go to your bank and you've been, so as an example, I've been a member or I've been a customer of CIBC up here in Canada for like 15 years. But when I went to get a mortgage with CIBC, I had to go through a KYC process. And I'm talking to my banker being like, you've known me for 15 years. Why are you asking me for my identity again? Like, why are these departments why are they not talking?
Right.
And so Shift Network was focused on how do you port identification using crypto rails without actually having to show the identification. So it's sort of like, how do you use crypto to effectively have like a stamp of approval that one person can confirm this person is who they are without having to reveal identity or again port identification all across the internet that could subsequently be hijacked and etc. So then in December 2020, I went to
technology that marries the old world with the new world. Simple
exactly.
way to describe it.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I won't go through the detailed story that we shared before we started recording, but I took your mind back to September of last year, 2024. Okay, here we are, August 2025. And it's hard to believe that wasn't 5 or 10 years ago. I've actually feel like 10 years has passed in this industry in the last year. And so let's go to that spot and let's talk about your organization and the industry and the regulatory environment as that is played out, and giving you lots of things to comment on, but I'm sure things have gone some directions you didn't think it would go. Okay.
Yeah.
What we're focused on now, I had no intention of being focused on in as early as April. Okay. But as some of these bills have been passed and then watching what the Trump family is doing, I just gave you 30 minutes of content to respond on, but just take us through the time frame of the last few months.
For sure. So Hut8, we're one of the oldest Bitcoin miners in the industry, but we've always had a thesis that really, at the end of the day, Hut8 parent company, we want to be energy and infrastructure operators full stop. And as I said earlier, Bitcoin mining is our tool to capture cheap megawatts at scale, immediately commercialize them, and then maintain that call option on that power, on that land as technology continues to evolve. So one of the things we knew though is that we had to spin out the volatility piece of our business. And what I mean by that is the piece of our business that was reliant on buying Bitcoin miners and continuing to chase exahash, because that can, like, buying Bitcoin machines can be very expensive. And again, we more so wanted to focus on just the energy and infrastructure side, not so much the server GPU side. So we knew we needed to spin out that piece of our business. And so this was September 2024. One of our co-founders was in Dubai with one of the co-founders of World Liberty, who the Trumps are associated with. And they got to talking about how Hut8 was looking to spin out these assets. The family was looking to get more invested in these assets. And so then what came about was effectively the idea for Hut8 to partner with the first family. Well, I guess they weren't the first family at that point, but the future first family on a JV, a joint venture called American Bitcoin, where Hut8 would be the energy and power provider for American Bitcoin's chips. As they mine Bitcoin, they do it in Hut8's facilities. So that was not on my bingo card, to be spending time with the first family, but it's been incredibly awesome. It's been fantastic to see how the Trump family has really been evangelists for this technology and for this industry. And then we saw the passing of the Genius Act and the Stablecoin Act. So it's pretty exciting to see how fast things have changed and the proliferation of this technology. So yeah.
It so very interesting. So break down how you see Hut 8 different than some of your competitors. You just said it, but can you regurgitate that for our audience?
Yeah, for sure. So the main differentiator between Hut and anyone else is our thesis and our belief that the use case of the electron will continue to evolve. And so what we're doing is continuing to find cheap megawatts at scale, lock them up. But again, instead of Hut 8 having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on servers to monetize the megawatts we capture, where the next best use case for now is just Bitcoin mining, we have our partner, the American Bitcoin and Trump family, come in, they bring their servers and use our energy until we find the next highest use case for those assets, which right now is looking like AI. But one of the things, and so we do have a substantial portion of our pipeline that is now likely going to be converted into AI infrastructure deals, not just Bitcoin mining deals. But I think one thing that not a lot, everyone's talking about AI, there's not enough power, Bitcoin miners are sitting on all this power that AI could use. That is very true. That is true. But there's also been simultaneous talk about, even Sam Altman yesterday from OpenAI came out and said, we may be in a bubble. I think Ray Dalio has been saying the same. And our thesis, but I will say Sam Altman did also say that he's still very bullish on energy and infrastructure. And that also aligns with Hut 8's thesis. For example, we don't think that this just stops at AI. Manufacturing is 12 months behind where the data center industry is right now. You have all kinds of companies that are repatriating to the US, otherwise they're also at threat of tariffs, right? Companies leaving the European Union to repatriate and set up shop in the US. TSMC, their chip factory alone is 2.8 gigawatts. We also think that manufacturing is going to be in the same position as where AI data centers are right now in the next coming quarters. And that's why a company like Hut 8 that is sitting on a massive amount of megawatts is going to continue to create these flywheel of opportunity and flywheel of power deals. It doesn't just stop at AI here. We are the energy infrastructure platform of the future, incubating new technologies as they come down the pipeline. So that's one of our differentiators. None of our peers are sort of thinking of it that way, and none of our peers have the team that they do behind them. So.
Gotcha. So for our listeners, does Hut 8 go away and everything trades under ABTC, or what look like?
No. So Hut 8 so ABTC is Bitcoin accumulation, and they buy servers or they buy Bitcoin in the market, or they do whatever they can to acquire Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Hut 8, we are a full energy and infrastructure platform powering the future of technology. So that means Bitcoin, that means AI, that could mean manufacturing one day, that could mean green hydrogen. If Elon wants to shoot all his rockets into space, he's going to need a ton of hydrogen. So, and Hut 8 is sitting on the megawatts to power the future of where technology is going. And Bitcoin is a sleeve of that. So that's Hut 8.
Fascinating. So let's shift. I started to bring up Larry Lepard, the big print. Okay. And when you're around, have you met Scott Bessett yet? Have you been around? I know.
I haven't met Scott. I spent time with Larry. I haven't met Scott yet.
How about Howard Lutnick? Anytime?
I spent a lot of time with his sons. I haven't met Howard yet.
Okay. So this is just put the disclaimer on it. This is just a conversation, but high level here. So I like to hand out Larry's book, and because I think it saves our clientele that are running their businesses to want to grab, hey, where are things at today? And if I was giving you a book, I'd put to Sue Ennis from Chad Koehn, the date and the exact time, and then I put the U.S. debt clock. That number.
Yeah.
It's 37.
I can't believe that clock isn't broken yet. It's crazy.
37 trillion, 252 billion, 244 million. Then I asked him to write down the last six numbers. And, I'd say I have more people that frown than laugh because that reality sinks in. This is moving so fast you can't stop. Okay. And found out here in March and April, austerity and Department of Government Efficiency. That didn't change anything a bit. And so can't stop printing, and the can't default. So the all we can do is print. And here comes the big beautiful bill. And what we can't figure out here, there seems to be a battle going on. I guess Scott is known for stating the Bretton Woods Act needs to change. There needs to be a reset. I don't know that anybody knows what does this crossover look like when we leave paper fiat and move to the, I'll simply call it the new digital world. There seems to be a battle going on between the U.S. Treasury and the Fed. And of course, you know how most people from this space feel about the Fed. And what's your vision there?
So I do think that the U.S. is in a tough place because I think I read a stat the other day that interest payments alone are going to top something like 1 trillion alone in just interest payments that the government needs to make on all this substantial amount of debt. And so I think that I think that there's a bit of a struggle internally of Fed versus government in the sense that I think Trump knows that they need Bitcoin. They need it as a hedge. This is a real technology that's going to solve a lot of problems. But at the same time, number one, how do they afford to keep buying more? Because remember, Besant also was pro-Treasury, then retracted Treasury, and then said, we're going to find a cost-effective way to keep adding to the Treasury. So clearly there's a bit of dissent happening in the background there. But I think that what's very bullish for this industry is that the government is not confused that this technology is real, that if the US doesn't create the parameters for people to innovate, the US is going to lose their first mover advantage in this space, and they're starting to really gain that. But yeah, I think the question is what are we going to do about this 1 trillion worth of interest payments? Like, how do we solve for this? So I don't know if I have a thesis per se, but I think it's a very interesting time. Yeah, I'd be curious about your thesis.
Well, where entitlements are entitlements to Fed spending and interest on the debt, I can't quote my source live, but I do have it. We have sourced a slide in our presentation that prior to the big beautiful bill, it takes about 120% of our tax receipts to keep the country moving. And that obviously increases substantially. And sharing my thesis would be a little bit dangerous, but there seems to be a battle going on, and I don't know that anybody knows what it looks like. But through stablecoin and stablecoin being backed by Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of these networks, and maybe gold. But it's interesting. We were, the language was so strong to acquiring a big treasury, and it hasn't happened yet. And Scott's comments from the other day, we were very in touch with, and it seemed like it set the price back in U.S. fiat. But it's just interesting to watch this play out. And of course, our job is to keep capital position and protect our clients. So, but that's getting into more time than we have. But I appreciate you being here with me today.
Awesome.